Hello everyone, welcome again to English Champion. On this episode, we are analyzing once again the state of the American university. A couple weeks ago, I talked at length about how universities are ruining the profession of journalism and what I'm trying to do to work on that and reverse that trend. Last week, covered the role of universities in ruining the field of English, and again, what I try to do to stop that from happening. This week, the universities are complicit, along with students themselves, in bringing about the deterioration of universities. And we're going to analyze an article that came out this week from Inside Higher Ed that explains why I think that's happening. So let's take a look. I'm going to read a lot of this article so that you know exactly what it was about. And along the way, I'm going to point out some things that don't really make sense, as well as some things they get flat out wrong, as well as explain some things that may be the causes and the effects of what we're seeing in college classrooms. So this piece, again, on InsideHigherEd.com, basically reports the results of a survey of college students and what they see going on in their classrooms and what they think should be improved, what they see professors doing wrong, what they see schools doing wrong, and what students think could be done to make things better. I will get into that very premise here in a moment. So the article starts with a student named James Walsh. He's an education major at a public university, and he has some strong opinions about what he sees in college classrooms. And he says, the notion that everyone learns the same way is ridiculous, but professors tend to stick to what they know and what they've always done. He says that very few of his teachers do anything except for lecture. He can't name a single professor who has used any different teaching styles to engage learners. He says lectures are a great tool for college courses, but they're used too often. So what's happening right here from the start, and I'm going to get into this here in 1 second, is this very slippery language between teaching style and learning style. I'm going to use learning style in quotes, and I'll tell you why. The article goes into the number of students surveyed, about 3,000 students at various institutions, and the number one report that the article starts with is about teaching style. And teaching style that didn't work for me, in quotes, is the number one barrier to academic success cited by students in the survey overall. All right, again, they say the number one barrier to success is, quote, teaching style that didn't work for me. All right. They report it's made it hard to succeed in class since starting college. Half of students want professors to experiment with different teaching styles. And ultimately, they say there are too many professors that are using teaching styles that, quote, don't match how they learn. All right, so let's just dive into this right out of the gate here. And let me be very clear. The idea of learning styles, which again, they're sort of blending here with teaching styles. The idea of learning styles is not a thing. It's a myth. It's not real. There is no such thing as a unique learning style. All right? Contrary to what you'll hear education people say, it is not a thing. Ask any cognitive psychologist, ask any neurologist. That is not how the brain works. There's no such thing as learning style. Now, we do have various learning preferences. Each person does sort of like information to be presented a certain way. It does make things a little easier, perhaps, but that's very different than you having a categorized learning style, because what has happened throughout many decades of this myth being perpetuated at all levels, it starts in elementary school. And so you get kids thinking, well, I have to learn in this way, and if you don't teach me in this way, I can't learn. And so then you get all this individualized instruction nonsense, and it creates havoc for teachers because the teachers go along with it and they think it's real and they perpetuate it. And if a student's struggling, then they say, well, little Johnny, he's a different type of learner, so we got to teach him this way. And none of that is real. So again, there are preferences. We all do like things to be presented a certain way, but that has no effect on whether or not you are able to actually learn. Anyone can learn in any way. All right. It might take a little more effort. You might have to practice a little bit, but It's not impossible. You don't have a style that only works for you and no other style works. That's not how it works. Okay. No scientist who understands how the brain functions will agree with that. Okay. In fact, in the psychology world, cognitive psychology and neurobiology world, that myth is sort of equated to, I've seen authors call it, it's like believing in fortune telling. It's so not real, it's not even close. All right. So whenever you hear someone say that, that is someone clearly indicating they have not read anything scientific, because anyone who reads the science can tell you, oh, that has been debunked. That's not a real thing. There's been countless studies that show even that students, what they think are their learning styles, they're not even accurate about their own style. You might give a student who thinks I'm this type of visual learner, and so they give tests on things that are visual, and then they give tests on things that are more auditory or any other form, and they'll show the results, and the results were exactly the same. The student actually learned equally regardless of the style. So again, this myth sort of perpetuates itself, and it leads students to think about the world and about themselves in a way that is factually wrong. And we just accommodate it, and we actually perpetuate it. And that is one way that education has gone off the rails. And now we get them in college, and they still think this. And here we are still thinking we have to accommodate it. Now, again, teaching style is slightly different. When we're talking teaching style, we're talking methodology, different types of approaches and activities, and just technique. Those may or may not be correlated with learning style. So when it says, well, they don't match how they learn, those are two very different things. Okay? Teaching style, and I think what the article should clarify, because it actually would make more sense, is that, yeah, professors should probably be using different techniques in the classroom. Lecturing every single day for an hour and a half straight is probably not the greatest thing to do. Not that it's bad. Again, if students say, I can't learn that way, they're not being honest. They can learn that way. They just need some more focus and practice. But, just for the sake of keeping students on their toes and engaged, probably not the best way. You probably want to mix in some various activities, some group work, some Socratic instruction. In my classes, basically every 15 to 20 minutes, I do something different. And it's not because I'm trying to reach students on their, quote, learning style. It's just because I want to keep them on their toes. I want them ready for anything. And so every 10 or 15, 20 minutes, I throw something different at them so that they're paying attention. It's more to protect against boredom than it is to try to reach their, quote, learning style. So we've got to get past that, because if the data here that they're accumulating is based on something that isn't even real, we can't take it seriously. So I wish the article was clear on the difference between teaching style as being opposed to learning style. Teaching style is, of course, there's different teaching methods. That's a real thing. Learning style, not a thing. Engagement would probably be a better way of approaching it rather than learning style. So again, they say more than half of students felt they were negatively impacted by teaching styles that, quote, don't match how they learn. So again, that's not real. Various students report that it's been a barrier to academic success, which especially for some reason, LGBT students, again, with so many accommodations, I don't understand why that would even matter. If you're in a class with everybody and everyone's doing a group activity, or you're lecturing, or whatever style you're using in class, I don't know why your sexuality would have any role in that. That doesn't make sense at all. So why they even highlighted it, I'm not quite sure. All right. So that was number one on their student claims of impediments to success, was teaching style. Number two was overly difficult materials or exams. 1 in 2 students, so 50%, say it's hard to succeed in class since beginning college due to overly difficult materials or exams. A larger share of women than men report this to be at issue, 52% versus 47%. By discipline, this concern is least prevalent among arts and humanities, of course, because as I talked about last time, arts and humanities have made things so ridiculous that, of course, it's easier. It's most common that students have concerns about difficulty in the natural sciences. Well, that kind of makes sense. It should be harder. If you're going to go be a doctor, it should be the hardest classes you possibly take. The job of the natural sciences and any, engineering, the math and science fields, they should be there to weed you out. Okay, they're supposed to be hard. If they're too easy, we have a massive problem. I don't want a doctor operating on me in the future who had an easy anatomy and physiology professor or organic chemistry professor. You should have the hardest professor on the whole campus. And then students who can't handle it, they get weeded out because I don't want them to become doctors. I don't want them operating on me. Those people are not going to be qualified to pilot a spaceship to Mars. Like, we need the best, and so it needs to be the most challenging. So it makes sense that the sciences are the highest. But again, why are you? That's not an impediment to success. That means you're in the wrong field. It's too hard for you. Go do something else. That's not something teachers should accommodate you with. Also, this doesn't really fit with any other data. When students complain about difficulty, what we need to make very clear is that college has gotten way easier. All of education has, high school as well. Everything is much, much easier than it was decades ago. College used to be much more rigorous. Now college is sort of like what high school used to be, and grad school is kind of like what college used to be. Everything is easier. Inflation at every level is through the roof, grade-wise. So here we have students who have actually had things easier on them than any other generation, and they're still complaining that things are too hard. That means we're in double trouble here because we've already been relaxing our standards, and now students want them relaxed even more. What kind of students can we possibly produce in the working world that has real consequences, where we just keep making things easier for people? That's a recipe for disaster. So, if you want to be successful, complaining about how difficult things are, you're in the wrong place. Maybe college isn't for you. Maybe that major isn't for you. I don't know, but you can't complain about it when you've chosen it. This is the way it is, and it's already easier than it should be. So you're already getting cut a lot of breaks as students. So number one, again, was the biggest impediment to success was teaching style. The second was things are too hard. The third, school life balance. I absolutely hate when anyone ever talks about the word balance. That annoys me to no end. It's like, you have a job to do. Do your job. When you're older and more in a more comfortable place, yeah, you can maybe try to balance your life out a bit. But basically, until you're 40, there should be no such thing as balance. Your job is to work as hard as you possibly can if you want to become successful. If you don't, that's fine. You can balance all you want, but you don't get to have it both ways. I want to be super successful, but I also don't want to have to work that hard. I want to have a lot of free time. That's not how it works, okay? School life balance, work life balance, no. You have a job to do. Do your job. Bust your tail to work as hard as possible so you can be as successful as possible, so that in the future, you've built up enough margin in your life where now you can maybe ease your foot off the gas pedal, and maybe things will get a little bit easier for you and you can balance things out if you want. But successful people don't talk about work-life balance. All right, they just don't. So these stats were interestingly, very strangely, this rate was not elevated. Those students who wanted more school-life balance, not elevated among students with jobs. A little weird. You'd think students with jobs who have to pay their tuition by going to work 8 hours a day and then coming to class at night or whatever, those would be people who would probably like things to be more balanced. It's not them. It says the school work and life balance is apparently a bigger concern for students with financial aid than those without. So I'm very confused by this. Here, you're already getting benefits that other people don't get, and yet you're still complaining that life is too difficult for you. If you're getting financial aid, you probably don't have to work as much. Now, you still might, and maybe that's your choice, but you're also being compared to students who are working, and they're less concerned with this balance than you are. This is a very confusing stat. I'm not sure why this would be the case. So very, very odd. But again, no student, no young person should ever be complaining about balance. You need to get to work. You have a lot of things to accomplish. You're way behind all of the other people who are older and smarter and more experienced than you. So if you want to catch up and be successful, get to work. Balance is the least of your concerns. Number 4, unclear expectations. This is a concern for 4 out of 10 students overall, prevalent among arts and humanities, which doesn't make any sense because, as we'll see, arts and humanities is actually the easiest field, according to the data, where the teachers are actually most accommodating. So this expectations thing doesn't quite make sense. White students complain about it more than any other group, which is interesting. I'm going to talk about that here more closely here in one second. This could go a couple ways. There are bad teachers out there who don't have clear expectations. That is certainly possible. But it also could be very possible that it's the students themselves who aren't paying attention to the expectations. We professors now have to include so much information in our syllabi and basically come up with every single thing students would ever want to know about our class that lays out, here's what this class is about, here's what we expect of you, that if students don't know the expectations, yeah, it could be a bad teacher who isn't clear enough, but it's also very likely that students just aren't listening. They're not reading the syllabus, they don't listen in class. When the teacher says, here is what I want, do this by next week to get a good grade on your project or whatever, and the students just don't listen. And then they get a bad grade and they're like, but you didn't clarify your expectations. No, the teacher did. You just weren't paying attention. So that could go either way. Unclear expectations. Who knows? That could be a teacher problem, but it also could be a student problem. Lastly, number 5 on the list of impediments to success, mental health. 4 in 10 students cite mental health struggles as a barrier to success. Women, again, slightly higher than men. Most prevalent among arts and humanities students. Again, I think there's a temperament issue there, but also very strange because, as we are going to discuss, things are actually easier in that field. So why would mental health be a major concern for you or an impediment to your success? White students report the highest numbers. And then lastly, here's a key stat, all right? Nearly half of strongly Democratic students say mental health is an obstacle, compared to only 1 in 5 who claim they're strong Republicans, all right? So 50% of Democrat students compared to only 20% Republican students. That is a key piece of information, all right? So we can see who tends to have these problems. Excuse me. Who tends to have these problems? People who are left-leaning and apparently white female students. Now, that's not just my own assessment of what the data is here in front of me. A very interesting article came out, I think 2 weeks ago now, from Jonathan Haidt, the psychologist. It's on his Substack. I don't know, he might have printed it elsewhere as well, but go check it out. It's an amazing collection of information and an amazing conclusion that he reaches from his data. And basically what he did, and this covers this section, and it covers this whole topic in general. So the reason I'm going to go into a little bit of depth on Haidt's article is because this tells us everything we need to know about what's going on at universities today, because all of this is related. So you can take Haidt's data and overlay it right on top of this survey of student data, and we get a clear picture of what's going on at today's universities. So one piece of data he came across was there was a survey happened in 2020 where they asked young people, well, they asked all people, but they also specifically asked young people, has a doctor or other healthcare provider ever told you that you have a mental health condition? All right. So not that you went into a doctor's office and that you had one and that you already knew it and that you needed treatment for it, but that the doctor offered that opinion to you. Well, that was the question. The number turns out to be about 50% of people, especially young people, have been told, oh yeah, you might have a mental health condition. And so it was broken down even further based on, okay, well, who exactly is reporting this? Who are the doctors telling this to? And here is the group of that had the highest number. Young people, so here's our college students. Women, so here's our females, and liberals. So there's our evidence from the survey from Democratic students. Young, female, liberals, and I think it also includes white in there. I think it was broken down by race as well. Young, white, liberal females have the highest rate of supposedly mental health conditions. Now, again, this doesn't mean they actually have them. It just means someone has told them that they did. Now, what's interesting about that is we can interpret that a certain way. And the way most people do is they say, well, of course that group is feeling, particularly anxious or depressed or whatever it may be. And they're reporting that, or they were told that, because the world is so dangerous, the world has so many problems, that reality itself is causing these young people, particularly white, liberal females, to feel particularly anxious. All right. The world is causing that in them. Therefore, they have this mental health condition. What Haidt determines, though, from the evidence, because he says, no, the data doesn't point that direction. It's not that the world is causing people to become more depressed or have other mental health conditions. It's the other way around. We're telling people they have it, and their depression, their anxiety, whatever their condition is causing them to look at reality in that way. So again, the thinking would be, well, the world is terrible and it's making young people miserable. No. We're telling young people they're miserable, that they feel miserable and they have a right to their feelings of misery. Therefore, they look at everything else through a lens of misery. We are causing the depression or anxiety in students, not the world. So, what is interesting for our academics topic, our university issue here today, he references another journalist who writes in an article, part of helping young people get out of their trap, stopping them looking at the world and wanting everyone to accommodate their misery, part of helping them get out of their trap is teaching them not to catastrophize. In other words, let's help young people become resilient. Let's help young people realize, you know what? Yeah, the world's tough. Here's how you can fix it. Here's how you can deal with it. Here's how you can still become successful. Now go do it. I'll help you, but put in the work. You can do it. Yeah, that's how you fix this problem. However, the next quote, progressive institutional leaders have specifically taught young progressives that catastrophizing is a good way to get what they want. Aha. Progressive institutional leaders. Well, who runs universities? Progressives do. Overwhelmingly, it's liberals, all right? Especially in the arts and humanities, it's over 95% probably. Maybe it's a little less in the fields of business or the natural sciences, perhaps, but overwhelming from the administrative level down to the, faculty in the classroom, to the students themselves. Everyone is liberal. Everyone's Democrat. Everyone's progressive. And yet, what you see in this survey, students are still complaining about it, okay? About how difficult life is at college. So here's the conclusion we can take from some of this data. This tells you that no matter what we do for young people, if this is the worldview we keep feeding them, that, oh, you're stressed, you must have a mental health condition. You must be miserable. And so then the student goes, well, yeah, I am miserable. That means everything around me is miserable. Therefore, I have a right to complain about it. And so then the leaders of these institutions go, well, we want to try to help you. And so we'll accommodate you. And then what do the students do? Well, they keep complaining about it. Because again, even though the people they're complaining to are already on their side and doing everything they can to accommodate them, because again, they're all the same. They're all liberals who have the same worldview they have. They're already helping them. And yet we still have the data that says, nope, they're not doing enough. I think the world should accommodate me more than they already are. So again, progressive institutional leaders have specifically taught young progressives that catastrophizing is a good way to get what they want. Well, what do they want? Well, what every human being wants, which is, well, I want things to be easier because that would make my life simpler. So what can I do to make my world easier? Well, if I complain about stuff enough, then people will accommodate me and therefore things will be easier. That's what we're doing. So this is why I started at the top of the broadcast with universities are complicit in what the students are bringing to them. Students have a distorted worldview. They think they know what's going on and they don't. And what do we do as leaders? Instead of saying, you know what, you don't actually know what you're talking about, we're going to help you fix your mindset so that you can become successful and deal with the difficulties of life. We say, oh, I know it's really hard. Let's come up with some ways to accommodate you. What are those ways? Well, I'm going to get into that here in one moment as the article continues. So in addition to this article from Inside Higher Ed, go look at Jonathan Haidt's most recent article on his Substack. These two articles overlay each other perfectly, and you'll know everything you need to know about what's going on at most universities from a psychological standpoint, as well as what the survey is saying about universities. Other concerns and considerations, the article goes on. 1 in 5 students cite a professor whose office hours conflict with their schedule. That does happen. Hopefully professors can work on their flexibility a little bit. An online course they would have preferred to take in person. That's going to contradict itself here in a moment, I'll get to. 16% of students say they've been negatively affected by the feeling they don't belong in their academic program. Well, you might not belong in your academic program. Again, if you don't know how to do math, you probably shouldn't be in the sciences, right? Like you think, I want to be, I want to work on cancer research. That's what I'm passionate about. And then you come to find out you don't know anything about chemistry or math. Well, yeah, you should go choose something else. So your feeling of being unwelcome or not belonging in your program could be you don't belong in the program. Maybe you're not smart enough, or you're not talented in that field enough. I can play a little bit of music, but I'm not good enough to play in a university music program. So if I go in and try and play, what they should tell me is, you know what? I appreciate your effort, and I'm glad you like music, but this program isn't for you. We have to be elite. We have to be expert professionals in this program. That's what we're training for, and you're not quite there. So you need to go do something else. That's what the program should tell you if they're being honest with you. Now, they shouldn't kick you out for no reason, but being honest is what would make the program stronger and what would lead you into a better program for yourself. You'll be happier if you're in the right place. You could also look at, it goes on to say, not just their academic program, but the institution in general. Go read work by Thomas Sowell, especially. He's written a lot about students being mismatched with their university. This has happened as we've made college way easier to get into for certain groups of people, where a student gets into a college that is way above their capabilities. Could be based on race, could be based on income, could be based on, if you're a first generation student, whatever. And there's all these opportunities that we've given students, which is great. And so the students jump on those opportunities and go to some elite school, and they realize, oh, wait a minute, this is way harder than I thought it was. I probably should have started at a community college and gotten used to what college life is like, or go to a state university, which is a little more, accessible for certain people. Maybe you're at the wrong institution. Maybe you've picked a school that doesn't align with your talents or your interests, and you'd be happier if you found a school that was a better fit for you. That's very possible. So those are overall were pretty low numbers comparatively, but still worth looking at. There's still work to be done to create classroom environments, quote, where every student feels as though they belong and is affirmed in their ability to become successful. This lady who's a provost at a university, affirmed in their ability to become successful. All right, so that's a very slippery way of putting it. Yes, we want to give students the confidence and the encouragement to pursue whatever they think they want to pursue. But at the same time, you have to be honest with students. If a student can't do the work, your job in affirming them isn't helping. You're making it worse. All right. If you tell a student who wants to be a doctor but can't pass the basic anatomy, physiology, organic chemistry classes, and then you affirm them, you can do it. You can be a doctor. Well, maybe they can't. Maybe they just don't have it in them. I'm a bright guy, but there's no way I could become a physicist or a chemist or any of the, I don't understand that stuff. I'm not smart enough. So a teacher should tell me, you know what? I appreciate your effort, but you might need to go do something else. Affirming a student and continuing to prop them up when real help, real guidance would be pointing them in a different direction. It's not helpful. So we need to be very careful when we say affirming students. Yeah, our job is to help them, but not, offer them false hope and false promise that isn't going to be good for them in the long run. Other student concerns, life load is a critical factor, which this lady says is the sum of all the pressures a student has in their life. Employment, finances, family needs, health, other dynamics. It's like, yeah, welcome to life. These are things every person goes through every single day. Again, back to that life balance stuff. Yeah, you got to figure that out. Just because you have a stressful life doesn't mean the world is going to bend to what you want. The world's going to expect things of you. Your boss someday isn't going to care that you didn't get much sleep last night, or that you have a sniffle, or that, You're going through a rough patch with your spouse. Your boss can be like, I needed this document done on my desk by today. Where is it? You don't have it? Go find a different job. Like, there's deadlines. You have to perform regardless. So look, we all understand that we all have parts of our lives that are stressful, but again, welcome to life. By the time you're an adult, which is what a college student is, you have to learn to cope with those things. So complaining about what the school or what a teacher is doing isn't helpful, and those complaints are coming right up. All of these problems point to a generation of students who are coming to college less academically prepared given pandemic learning loss. Yeah, some of us tried to prevent that. Yeah, some of us were pretty outspoken about not shutting down schools and not moving things to online, because online has been shown to be not a very effective way of educating our young people. Some of us tried to stop you, and you didn't want that. And now we're facing the consequences of your pandemic learning loss. So you folks caused the problem, and then you want everyone else to accommodate the problem, the results of the problem that you caused. Right. Okay. So maybe it would have been better if you didn't cause the problem in the first place. Then we wouldn't have to put in all these accommodations. So again, maybe you should listen to people who had other opinions on what went on over the last couple of years, because we were right and you got it wrong, and you are facing the consequences of that. This lady continues, for us as higher education institutions to adapt to the students we have today and not the students we were in prior decades. Condescending and patronizing. Yes, we know you're not as smart. We know life is hard for you. We know you can't handle it. So we'll make everything easier for you because you're not as good as we were. That's basically what you're telling young people. All right. Everyone's gone through difficulties throughout all of life. All right. College students back in the 60s and 70s had their own set of problems they had to deal with. College students in the 90s had their own set. College students today have their own set. Everyone goes through stuff. All right. We can't say, well, they're different than what we were. No, we're all young people. We're all dealing with stresses of life. It's normal. And we say, well, you students today, you can't handle things. You're just different. You have a lot of other things going on. No, they don't. Everything's similar to what it was. All right. So when you condescend to students and you make accommodations and you say, oh, I know you can't handle it, so I'll make things easier for you. That is so patronizing, and you're just making everyone weaker. Stop making young people weak. Help them become tougher. Help them become courageous. Help them become resilient so that they can become amazing adults. You condescending to them and treating them like children helps no one. So how are we condescending to them? What do the students want from us that would help them so much? Well, here's what they say, and this is hilarious. And all of this is like asking a 7-year-old, what do you think we should have for dinner tonight, little Johnny? Well, of course the kid wants chocolate cake for dinner and ice cream. That's what he wants. He doesn't want a healthy meal with vegetables in it, right? He wants things to be easier and fun because that's what children want. All right. Or we as parents, we should really consult our little Johnny on what his bedtime should be for him being in 2nd grade. No, we're the adults. We make the decisions. We know what's best for you because we're trying to help you adapt to this world because we've been through it and we're experienced. We'll tell you what to do. We'll help you through it, but we're not going to take advice from you. So we have this poll of what we should what students want from teachers, and apparently teachers are supposed to listen, which is funny. So the first one, more flexible deadlines. Yes. 57% of students say teachers should be more flexible about deadlines. Right, because that's how the world works, right? When your boss says, I need something by today, or the bank needs something by today, or, your engineering department needed something by today so they can begin building. And you go, I think I'll just turn it in next week. That's not how life works. Your teachers give you an assignment. They tell you when it's due because it's on the calendar in the syllabus. There's no confusion about it. You have time to plan for it. Get it done. So this idea of more flexible deadlines, quite a funny request from young people. Again, it's like asking your 7-year-old, I don't think I should have to go to bed at 8 o'clock. I think we should be able to negotiate and I should be able to go to bed at 10. Nope, I'm the adult. Here's what's happening. You need to do what I tell you to do. Experimenting with different teaching styles. Again, we talked about that. Half of students want that. They think that would help them become successful. Again, maybe, but if they rely on it being related to their, quote, learning style, then it's going to make no difference because every teacher is not going to be able to accommodate every single student's learning style, because that's impossible and not real. So yeah, teachers should probably mix up how they teach, but again, that has nothing to do with how students learn. Flexibility with attendance and participation. An amazing request, because students, you signed up for the class. When you were scheduling, you knew the class was on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 o'clock or whatever time it is, and you paid your tuition, and so that's what you do. You paid to enter the class, so you show up to the class. So then the teacher says, hey, I need you to be in class because I'm teaching you this stuff, and this is what you said you wanted, because after all, you signed up for the class. And then you complain about it and be like, oh, I know I'm paying tens of thousands of dollars, and I know I specifically signed up for this and I agreed to it by registering, but I think I shouldn't have to really come to class as often as you say. Really? Is that how it works? Again, try that in the real world. When your boss says, hey, come to work from 9 to 5, these are our working hours, and you say, I think I should be able to stroll in at 10, or I think I should be able to take the day off. I need a mental health day, or whatever your excuse is. Your boss can be like, well, you need to go find a different job because we work from 9 to 5 here. That's what we do. So again, you signed up for it. You chose to come to college, and now you're complaining about everything from how the teacher teaches to the fact that I have to actually go to class, to the fact that my teacher makes me turn in things at a certain time on a certain date. Why did you sign up for all this if you don't like it? This makes no sense. Teachers being more flexible. Clearer expectations, again, I mentioned this before, could go both ways. Sometimes it is teachers not being very clear, but a lot of times students just aren't listening. So don't always blame the teachers for that. And then finally, number 5, getting to know them. That's kind of a strange one. I'm a friendly guy, so in class I will ask students, if I have an athlete, I'll say, hey, I saw you guys played last night. How did the game go? I will do that, but which I think is useful for teachers to do. But getting to know students too deeply is a bit weird. When I was in school, I wanted no part of any teacher getting to know me. I wanted to be anonymous. I wanted to come to class, do my work, get my good grades, and get out. I wanted no part of developing a relationship with my professor. If my professor wanted to do that, I would have said, that's creepy, mind your own business, just teach me in class and leave it at that. So I don't know, that might be a generational thing. People from my generation did not want to be buddies with their teachers. So I don't know what that's about. But again, I think there's a middle ground. Students, teachers can be friendly and ask about some things, but getting to know what's going on in your personal life is, that's a bit overboard. Now, the type of school you teach at might be a little different. If you're at a small school where that kind of thing is actually encouraged, then yeah, you probably should do that. But if you're at a major university with 40,000 students, your teacher's not going to take a personal interest in you. It doesn't mean he doesn't like you. It means he's got 1,000 other students to deal with, and he can't keep track of everything. So he can't, this whole idea of accommodating every student's every little need, academic or personal or mental or social, whatever it is, it's crazy. Again, it's like asking the kid, what do you want for dinner? No, that's not what we're doing here. 1/4 of respondents say they want their professors to offer some class sessions online, even for in-person courses. So again, you signed up for an in-person class, yet you want your teacher to hold some of the sessions online. Again, when we've already just addressed previously in the article that online learning has been a catastrophe, especially for those students coming into school, because most of them probably had to learn online from high school. Why would you want to go back to that? And online learning also inhibits your ability to do the various teaching activities that you were complaining were lacking. When you're online, it's very hard to do group work. It's very hard to do any sort of interactive activity. It's even more difficult to do Socratic things where you're questioning people because you're trying to keep track of, what are you going to look at your screen with 400 students in it and have a Socratic conversation via Zoom? I mean, how are you going to do that? So again, you signed up for an in-person class and now you think it would be better if they offered some of those online. None of this makes sense. These results of the survey are so contradictory. Again, why are we taking this seriously or listening to it? They also wish there were more accessible hours from professors. That might be valid. Teachers should be more available, but also including wellness resources in the syllabi. No, that's all in your catalog for your university. If you want to know where various resources are on campus, that's all in your course catalog or your college catalog, your student handbook, whatever they call it at your school. That's not something that goes in the syllabus. Your syllabus is about the class. All right. If there's something, maybe a tutoring service that would be associated directly with that class, maybe that's useful to put in. A teacher could do that, but you know, it's not the job of your professor to keep track of your personal mental wellness and then also write in all of the resources available for that. The school already does that for you. You don't need your personal professors to do that for you. Here is a key stat. They were talking about what students want and how things could be easier for students. Few students, less than 1 in 10, want professors to set higher expectations for them and their peers. 12% of male students want this, and 5% of females want this. This is also reiterated later on. 5% say, I feel like my professors grade too easily overall. All right, so it's somewhere between 5 and 10% of students who think things could be more rigorous. Here's the secret. Here's your wealth gap. Here's your income inequality. Here's your success disparity among groups. There's the 90% who want things to be easier, or maybe not 90, but the 90% who think things are okay as they are, and 50% of them want things to be easier. And there's the 5 to 10% who say, I think I can do more. I want more of a challenge. Push me harder. Yeah, there's your difference. When we hear about the culture and how there's, whether it's income or whatever levels of success or people who are CEOs, who reach higher levels in their industries, whatever it is, there's your difference. It's people who want to do more and who want to be pushed. They become the most successful. So there's your divide. The divide we see in the workplace or in income later on, we see it right here with 19-year-olds. If you want to be pushed, well, you're probably on the path to becoming really successful. If you think your class or your school in general or your department, your field, whatever, could be more rigorous and you're looking for a challenge, well, you'll go find one and you're going to be a superstar. Those are the top students who become the most successful. If you're the student who complains that the teacher's too hard or that things aren't clear enough or I shouldn't have to come to class today or you should give me an extension on this paper or I should get more time to take a test, whatever your excuse is, well, you're not going to be as successful because you're looking for shortcuts. And successful people don't do that. High income earners don't do that. High income earners work more hours per week. They get more accomplished. And that's why they're more successful because they're constantly looking for a challenge. So here's a stat from our academics that completely connects to how the broader culture operates. And so what would be better? If you want more successful people, well, you need to be more rigorous in the classroom. Train students to embrace the rigor and the challenge and to push themselves as much as the teacher is pushing them, because that's how you get successful people. Accommodating people and making life easier for everyone, nope, that's how you get the divide. So when you complain about inequality or inequity, there's your reason why. Too much accommodation creates the disparity. It does the exact opposite you think you're doing. You think when you accommodate people, you raise them up. You actually just keep them down. And the people who didn't need it, they excel even faster because their competition just got diluted. And so now they stand out even more. They were already probably going to be somewhat of a superstar. Now they're the obvious superstar. They're definitely the ones that get hired for certain jobs. That's the difference because everyone else got accommodated. Everything else got decreased. And the people who didn't need that, they succeeded past them. So there's your difference. We at the universities are causing the greater problem in the culture. 2/3 of students say that professors grade pretty fairly. This sentiment was highest in the arts and humanities. So again, arts and humanities people, this is my field. This frustrates me because this is, English and history and, other arts as well, music and all that. They say, oh yeah, things are pretty fair. Yet they're also the ones who complain the most. They're the ones who have the most stress. So I don't know what they're talking about. 2 out of 5 students say professors grade too harshly. 3 out of 10 say they don't quite understand how their professors are grading. Again, that could be true, but it also could be that students aren't paying attention to what the teachers have said. Among those who have asked for accommodations, like extensions on when to turn in a project or something, just over half say the responses were positive. So again, you're complaining, you want things to be more accommodating, and yet when you've done this in the past, actually over half say, oh, the response has been positive. Yeah, my teacher did let me do that. So again, we're already cutting you slack. We're already making things easier. And yet some of you are still complaining that it's too hard. So the data here doesn't really align with what the reality is. Lasting impressions, the final part of the article. Asked in the survey to share an example of a faculty action that made them feel like they had a better chance of succeeding in a class, students recalled some actions that illuminated some of the other data. So here's a slippery word: a better chance of succeeding in a class. Well, what does succeed mean exactly? Does it mean get a high grade? Because we could bypass all of that and just give all students a high grade without doing anything. You succeeded. If your measurement of success is you got a good grade, well then why do anything? Just if they enroll in a class and they pay their tuition, just hand them an A. Be done with it. Why even go through all this hoop jumping of this stuff we call academic classwork if all that matters is regarding your success is, well, I just want a high grade. Well, then let's just give you the high grade. Why fight about it? Or is success in a class meaning you actually showed tremendous improvement and you learned a lot and now you're way more competent than you were before you started the class? Well, those are, ideally those would be the same thing, that you improved and you're really, really smart now and you got a high grade for it. But those don't always go together. Sometimes the best you can do and you've learned a ton and you're way better off than what you were and you end up with a C, well, that could be success in a class. But if a student only cares about getting an A, he's going to say he wasn't successful. So which is it? Because ideally they go together, but they don't always have to. So what are we measuring success as? So it offers a couple anecdotes, which are quite illuminating and quite silly. Student says, one time I got confused with a deadline and thought an assignment was due at 10 p.m. instead of 10 a.m. I raced after my professor, told him about the situation and how I had so much on my plate at the time: school, club, research, grad school applications, etc. They let me turn in the assignment late without penalty and were very understanding. That gesture alone made me more motivated to attend class and do well in the course. I got 10 times more engaged in the material and did extremely well in the class. Okay, a couple things wrong with this little anecdote here. One, confusion of when something's due quickly changed to, oh, I just have so much on my plate. I'm doing all these things. It's like, well, wait a minute. Was that the excuse you told your professor? Or did you just forget and got confused about the time? Like, which is it? Because your story quickly changed. Because otherwise you would have said, I was really swamped and I didn't realize that the time when it was due. And so I explained it to my professor. No, you said, I got confused. Were you just not paying attention? Is that why you got confused? You weren't, really on top of things the way you should be. So we're not unsure of what caused this student to do this, but the real kicker is what he says after that. That the professor was very understanding, let me turn it in, and that's what motivated me to do well in the course. I got 10 times more engaged. There's no way that's true. No, at no point when you make things easier for someone does that make that person work harder. There's no way that's true. All right. This student on this survey is reporting a nice story to make everything sound nice, but that's not true at all. If it were true, then boy, our Navy SEALs and Army Rangers have really been doing everything backwards all these years, right? To create our elite fighting force to protect our country, really what we should have been doing is going easier on them, because that's what would make those Navy SEALs and Army Rangers actually work harder to succeed to reach their goals. Yeah, right. That's not what happens. People work harder when they're pushed to work harder, when there are consequences, when there are costs involved, when what you do actually matters. Well, making things easier and accommodating everyone doesn't make you work harder. All it does is make you go, oh, you know what? I got away with this last time. I'll just do that again and I won't have to work as hard. I don't have to do things on time. That's what you learn. You don't learn to work harder. You learn that things are easier. And so you just do less work. So this story doesn't make any sense, and I don't believe it for 1 second. Another student said, it'd be helpful if professors didn't give multiple assignments during exam week. Again, yeah, I know exam week is tough. You're taking 5 classes. You have 5 different finals or projects. Yeah, it's a mess. But guess what? Students have been doing that forever. So you're not special that this only now happens to 21st century college students. It's always been that way. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying, yeah, that's what happens during finals week. The professor one professor stated that the first midterm could only help your grade. If you scored well, it'd be helpful. If you didn't score well, it wouldn't hurt your grade. This way, I was way more enthusiastic and actually learned things instead of being only focused on my grade. Again, One, I don't believe that for a second. Two, you should be focused on what you learn. The grade actually doesn't matter. I can talk about that another time, but no one really in all your life is going to care what grade you got. They just want to care. All they care about is, do you know stuff? Are you able to do the job? So you should have been focused on your learning anyway. That's a you problem. But third, why is this professor assigning a major exam and then telling students, oh, it actually doesn't matter? Yeah, you don't do well, it doesn't hurt you. Well, that's a big red sign to every student in class going, who cares about this test? Why would I study on it? All right. Now, I understand certain professors, if they're in a class where they give quizzes every week or something, so by the end of the semester, you've got 15 quizzes and you tell your class, all right, I'm going to drop one. Whatever your worst one is, I'll cut you a break and we'll drop the lowest one. So I understand that when you have a large data sample like that, to sort of, mathematically, it kind of makes sense to do that for students sometimes. But this isn't one of 15 quizzes. This is your midterm. That means it's probably a pretty important assessment, and you just told your students, oh, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter that much anyway. If you do well, great. But if you don't, who cares? Like, why would you do that to students? In my classes, every single thing we do is important because I want my students on their toes, ready to work and ready to take on a challenge all the time. Whether it's a small thing like a little daily activity we do in class, or whether it's a big project that I give them a month to work on, every single thing we do matters because I want students prepared for the real world when they go to their job and a boss tells them to do something. They don't just get to go, oh, you know what? I don't really want to do that. It probably doesn't matter anyway. So I'll do better on the next one. No, everything matters. So we practice that now. That's the point of college. So I'm not sure what the student is talking about, and I'm not sure what this professor is doing. They're both at fault for this problem. The article at the conclusion, one lady who's a professor at a major university, she says, we just need examples of instructors being compassionate and caring. Students deserve that, and instructors can bolster student learning by showing that kind of compassion and caring. Well, it depends on what we call compassion and caring. You got to define your words here very carefully. Being compassionate, again, and caring would be, well, I'll just give you an A. Don't bother even doing the class. I'll just give you an A because, after all, an A is what you want. An A will look good on your transcript. You might even get a job because of it. Who knows? I don't know. But that's what you want from me. To show you I care, I'll just give you an A. Is that compassion? No, it's not. Maybe compassion is, hey, this isn't for you. I know you're trying your best, but this isn't the field that you'd probably be best at. Maybe you should try something else. Maybe that would be more compassionate, having some honesty with a student. What I do, how I accommodate rigor and standards with, quote, compassion and caring, is I tell my students, I say, my goal is to create the most rigorous course, department on campus. Because I want superstars. I want everyone to be excellent. So that when you go out into the world and you say, I studied English at that school with that professor, they go, oh, I know their reputation. You must be awesome because you had to put in a lot of work to get through that. That's what I want. I want the most rigorous department, highest standards, best performance from students. That's what I want. But what I also tell students is I will also be the most helpful teacher and the most helpful department you'll ever be a part of. I will help you with whatever you want. If you're willing to put in the work and you want assistance and guidance through that, I will help you. I will come to my office at 9 o'clock at night. I'll come in at 6 in the morning. I'll come in on a Saturday if you want. I will help you. If you really want to succeed, I'm here for you. But that does not mean I will lower my standards. That does not mean I will let you do work late or that I'll let you skip out on certain activities or assignments or days of class. We have high standards that everyone has to follow. No excuses. To accomplish that, if you want my help, I will do that. But I will not lower my standards. I will not make life easier for you. I will help you get through the toughness of life. And that's what a teacher should do. That's what a parent should do. That's what a coach should do. That's what a pastor or any mentor should do, is let's acknowledge that life is tough. Let's acknowledge that this academic program you're in is tough. Okay? It is. I will guide you through it. We're not going to make it easier on you, but I will show you the way of how to become successful. But it's up to you to do it. So you decide. Do you want to do it? Great, I'll help. If you don't, that's fine. Go do something else. But I'm not going to relinquish the goal of what we're trying to accomplish, or I'm not going to relax my standards, because that's only going to harm you. All right? So when we show this compassion and caring and we just cut breaks for everybody, really what you're doing is, as Jordan Peterson would say, you're the witch in the woods baking cookies for Hansel and Gretel. You're trying to lure young people in by thinking you're so nice. And what you're doing is you're going to harm them in the long run, because the world's not going to be so nice. And the world's going to smack them in the face with deadlines and with showing up to work on time and all the things that come with reality of the world. And you haven't prepared them for that. So you've done them a disservice. And you call that compassion and caring. And I would call it harming your students and not upholding your job as a professor or as an institution. We have to be better than that. By the end of the article, there's finally one tiny little passage where they acknowledge that there's another side to this. One professor who's in biology at a major university, a public university. It makes sense it's biology because, as I said from earlier on, you have to have high standards. I can't have you become a doctor when you don't know anything about science. Okay, so he says, these kinds of things, these ideas of how we can help students do better are a bit tricky in high enrollment courses. Like I said, if you teach a class that has 400 students in it in some lecture hall, you can't provide all those accommodations. That doesn't make any sense. You can do some of those things in a class of 20, but if you're teaching at a huge university like this guy does, and you're teaching 400 students at a time and you have to lecture as your primary mode of instruction, well, you can't do all this that they're asking for. He says, moreover, we're trying to prepare students to be competent professionals and contribute to the world. If you work for a company, there may not be flexible deadlines. Exactly. So again, this guy gets it. He's like, there's reality out there. We can't cut the slack you're asking for and still call ourselves a real educational institution. Our job is to help you, and the business world or any other industry you go into isn't going to be so nice to you. There's an immense amount of data. It comes out almost every year. Just go Google it, and you'll see how businesses or various companies in various industries are constantly saying, yeah, students aren't prepared. They're not ready for the workforce. They're not ready academically. They're not ready socially. They're not prepared mentally. They are not great employees when they start. And that's a problem because they want to hire, because they have money on the line. They don't want to hire people who can't do the job. You got this degree. We think your diploma says you're capable of starting this job at this company. And then we find out, oh, you're not qualified at all. Well, you're wasting people's time and money. We can't have that. And so go look at the data on how businesses report on where students are falling short when they leave college and enter the workforce. And again, it overlaps with this perfectly. It's like, why aren't they prepared? Well, because you don't expect anything of them. You coddle them and treat them like children. When you incentivize people to be children, guess what you get? More children. Incentivize people to become adults, and guess what you'll get? More responsible, competent, disciplined, diligent adults. Well, isn't that what we want in the world? Stop treating everyone like children when they're not. These are 18 to 22-year-olds. They're not children. Train them to be adults. Make them responsible. Take the lead, educators out there and university administrators, in holding a standard that says, here is how we do things. We want you to be great. That means we have a few rules, and everyone's going to follow them because we believe in fairness, and everyone should have to follow the same rules. That's true equality. So if you want to become great, awesome. We want you at our school. If you don't, if you're just looking for accommodations and shortcuts, maybe our school isn't for you. Maybe this program isn't for you, whatever. But we expect you to be great. So we'll help you, but that's what we're aiming at, greatness. Well, our universities aren't doing that anymore, and that's the problem. So whether it's journalism, whether it's English, whether it's whatever, we've grown too accommodating, and we think we're helping, and we're actually hurting. As I was reading, I was thinking, imagine Neil Armstrong back when he was in college at Purdue, and he was taking his aeronautical engineering courses, and he was having to do this advanced math and physics so that he could become a pilot. And then he could do the most dangerous thing that any human being had ever done in the history of the world: strap himself to a rocket and go land on the moon. I wonder if he was thinking, you know what? I wish this physics class was a little simpler. I wish this teacher wasn't so tough. I wish I could have an extension on this math test I have to take. No, I'm sure he was like, I'm going to do great things. I want the biggest challenge possible because I'm going to go do important, valuable things in the world. And to do that, I better be really, really smart and tough and resilient. And so I can't imagine Neil Armstrong going to his professors and saying, I think you should make this easier. I think you should get to know me more so that I can become the best astronaut I can be. No, he probably said, make it tough because that's what it takes to go to space. And that's where I'm going. Or to be a test pilot, which is what he did. Yeah, we've got to make kids tougher. One of the things I often talk about in some of my classes is I love stories. When I see stories, it usually happens in a context of sports, but it's in a variety of capacities where I see a story on TV or on the internet about a family who, they give birth through some strange genetic accident. Their child has some kind of disability. They were born without limbs, or, a limb or a couple limbs, or some other physical deformity that is going to make their life very difficult. And the parents and the kid who's now grown up or whatever tell the story where they go, yeah, we didn't treat little Johnny any differently. Yeah, he doesn't have legs, but we said, you know what? You're going to be great. You can participate in these activities. You need help getting something off the shelf. You figure it out because that's what, you're going to have to do that eventually. So, you solve the problem. You can do it instead of accommodating the kid. And by the time the kid, is an adult, he's doing these amazing things and he's having an influence on the world. He's inspiring other people. Why? Because his parents and his teachers and his other mentors said, we're not going to let your disability get in the way. We think you can become great. You're still capable of doing amazing things. So just get after it. And yeah, you're going to have to work harder. That's the way of the world. You were born with some disadvantages, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. So get after it. I'm here to support you in whatever you want to do, but you're no different than those other kids. If you want to play football with them, get out there and play. If you want to join a club, go join it. Do whatever you want to do, and we're here to support you. But you're going to have to figure it out and do a lot of things on your own through hard work. But you can do it. Well, those stories bring tears to my eyes every time I watch them because I'm like, yes, that's what teachers, that's what coaches, that's what parents should be doing. Inspire your kid to do great things. Stop giving them ways out. Stop giving them shortcuts. This is what students are asking for at our universities today, and we shouldn't be listening. We're the ones who are the adults. We're the ones who have had the experiences. We've gone through this already. We can show them the way. We can give them the guide map. That doesn't mean we have to give them a shortcut. That's not how it works. The world demands better, and we can be better if we hold to high standards and we expect them to perform. We expect them to perform competently. That's the goal. So, universities, we have a lot of work to do. I'm doing it in my program and in my classrooms. Hold students accountable, push them to become great, help them acquire skills and knowledge, but ultimately they got to be the ones who do it, and they're responsible. Teach kids to become responsible, and this world would become a much more stable and more fruitful place where we can all accomplish great things. So that's it for today. Thanks for listening. Tune in next time for more English Champion. And also take a look at new updates on my Substack. Talk to you next time.